No, it doesn't look like it.
Oh, there we are.
live.
We are finally live. Hello and welcome everyone to another edition of the Daily Friend Show. It took us a while to go live for some reason, which is why the intro was a bit scuffed, as the kids say. But welcome everyone, and today I am of course joined by Mr. Bheki Mahlobo. Bheki, how are you?
I'm well, and yourself, Nick. How are you doing, Marius?
Right, and you, Bheki?
Good.
And of course, Mr. Marius Roodt. So we've got the strong East Rand contingent once again. I don't know how it is that the schedule keeps putting you two guys together, but clearly,
it's
people in the
rivalry,
East Rand
man.
flock
It's
together.
Exactly.
it's like Benoni versus Boxburg. It's just
Exactly.
the
Yeah, exactly.
universe speaking.
You know the old joke. There's a guy from Benoni and a guy from Boxburg in a car. Who's driving? The police.
That's very good. That's very good. All right. So we are a little bit late today, but that is due to we thought that there was a thing happening and then the thing isn't happening. So apologies for that. But anyway, let us continue through to the news of the day. So, of course, on the show, we've talked a lot about the problems with the national health insurance idea that government has been kicking around for a while. And one of the most insidious parts of this, which has been proposed for a very long time, but is it hasn't been implemented yet, but it's been kind of suggested multiple times, and there's now another round of new regulations which seem like it's going to try and put this into force. And this is, of course, the certificate of need. So what is that? As far as I understand it, and I'm open to correction from my more intelligent panelists here. Basically, if you are a healthcare practitioner, you have to apply for a certificate of need that says that you are in fact needed in the area in which you practice. And the government only issues it to you if they agree with you. Otherwise, they'll issue you a certificate of need saying, no, actually, we need you here. So presumably government then can basically direct where you want to go in the country. Marius, am I getting that right? And that sounds, the word socialism is thrown around a lot these days, but
That.
Exactly. I mean, it's it's typical central planning that we've seen from the governments. The market itself will decide whether a doctor or dentist or whatever the case is going to be able to, is needed in the area. If they go there and there's already too many doctors, they're going to make money and they're going to go somewhere where they are needed, like any other profession. So it's ridiculous, and it's just going to cause a bottleneck for when in areas where there aren't medical professionals and what have you. And from the articles I've been reading, this is also likely to force an exodus of lots of medical people, doctors, and what have you, because it's up to each person to decide where they want to go work, and if there's no work there, they won't work there. It's completely ridiculous, and just shows you the typical central planning that we've got from this government, who has never met an idea from the 1960s it didn't like.
Yes, exactly. So one of the things supporting what you just said, Marius, was that there was a survey that came out in June of this year, which didn't ask specifically about the certificate of need, but it asked about the national health insurance. And they said to various healthcare professionals, is this going to change your attitude towards the country? And something like 40% of them roughly said that they plan to emigrate from South Africa if NHI is put in. And that's exactly something the certificate of need would make particularly bad. A lot of doctors already have to do some service where they work for the government for a few years when they first come out of med school and intern, and then they have to do, I think they call them the Zuma years, when they work for the government for like 2 years in a hospital. And by the end of that, they're pretty tired of, the hell that is our public health system, and they want to go and start their own practice or maybe work at a private hospital or do whatever else. And surprise, surprise, what do you think will happen if they're forced to go and work in wherever some government bureaucrat, rural Limpopo or something? I mean, they definitely need doctors there, but the doctor's just going to say, no, I'm moving. Bheki, am I right about that? What else do you have to add on this?
You're right. And Marius called it spot on. It's central planning. It's the directing of resources by a bureaucrat, and the result of that is the misallocation of capital, like how Marius explained. I think what's mostly missed a lot of the times by most media pundits and as well as other analysts is that they fail to understand the way of thinking of the ANC. And I'll use the cabinet reshuffle. A lot of business, a lot of media as well look at the cabinet reshuffle as if it's a good thing, but they don't actually look at the way of thinking within the cabinet ministers themselves, which is largely the same towards central planning against any reforms that would see South Africa grow. And a policy that's disastrous to South Africa is NHI, which the certificate of need is leaning towards that NHI, the centralization of healthcare resources, which will be negative to healthcare practitioners as well as healthcare businesses. So yeah, you're spot on there, Nick.
Right. So one of the things that I think government has tried to use as justification for its planned NHI program is South Africa's vaccine rollout. It's never been explicitly stated, but there's a strong suspicion that by very centralizing the rollout, especially in the early days, government was kind of intending to show, look, we can do this. Look, if we centralize this big program, we roll out to the whole country and we, get everyone to do what we want, we'll demonstrate that really we can do things and run the healthcare system. And I was just looking at some statistics of the speed of the vaccine rollout program in India. And I think I'm correct in saying that yesterday, India vaccinated 55 million people.
Sure.
That's like
nearly as many people in the whole country.
Yeah, it's basically an entire South Africa. South Africa, for the first, 5 months of the government's program, vaccinated something like 10,000 people a day or less.
We had the same levels as Somalia, Afghanistan. In fact, Zimbabwe beat us. That's what centralization of vaccine meant. Zimbabwe.
But also, just as a personal anecdote, I don't know if I didn't get an SMS because I got vaccinated privately, but I'm still waiting for an SMS from the EVDS system to tell me when I can go get vaccinated. So I'm not sure if now I've been spotted on the system and they say, okay, he's got his first jab or whatever the case is. But if I haven't, then it tells you something. I mean, people my age could register from what was it? A month ago, you could register on the system and you could be vaccinated from the 1st of August, apart from Hawkins. And I'm still waiting for an SMS. And I mean, that's part of the reason also vaccine rollout is slowing down now, because lots of people who are over 30, most people who are over 35 who want the vaccine have gone and got it. And now it's vaccine hesitant people, and which is all fair enough. And so they should just open vaccinations to the under 35s and get as many people vaccinated that want it as possible. And yeah.
Another thing with the whole centralization of the vaccine vaccine rollout is that it actually increased inequality in terms of people getting vaccinated. People that had medical aids that were able to go to the vaccine site were more likely to be vaccinated than people that don't have a medical aid and live in poor areas. So if the whole objective was that everyone is at an equal playing field and be nationalizing the whole vaccine so that everyone is vaccinated, they completely missed the mark. They failed at that objective.
I see one of our commenters is asking how many people don't want the vaccine though. And I think there was some media reporting on this recently. I think it's something like 35% of South Africans, adults, have expressed some hesitancy about getting vaccinated. Am I correct in my memory there, Marius?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure the total amount, but I did see something like just over half of white South Africans want to get the vaccine, and something like 3/4 of black South Africans. So obviously, I saw it on Twitter, and there was obviously somebody, a young white woman was using it to, say why white South Africans are so terrible. But
Twitter is always the same.
Just the anecdote today. I was in the Eastern Cape a few days ago, and I was listening to the radio, and there was a lot of callers on the radio, as well as in the area that I was in. Like, there were a lot of them saying, like, I'm not going to take the vaccine because either A, I've already had COVID, and the symptoms weren't as hectic compared to other people, and I feel like I'm fine. I have an immune system and so forth, as well as, like, some of them would say that, well, I'm 100 meters away from the nearest person from me. I don't see the reason for me to get a vaccine and so forth. So there's also those variables at play as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I think those are pretty reasonable arguments for the most part, especially the first one.
Exactly.
You know, the science is still not entirely clear on this, but it does seem like
Yeah.
if you've had it, your chances of getting seriously ill from a second round of COVID is quite low. Which is
and at the same time, I mean, you also see there's lots on social media. There's lots of kind of vaccine scolds who, you know, call people who have real concerns about vaccines, calling them anti-vaxxers and saying that they bunch of mad right-wingers. And look, I mean, as I say, I've been vaccinated, but there are real concerns with the vaccine. And I think it's fair enough if you are hesitant about getting the vaccine. I think people should get the vaccine because it seems to that does protect people against COVID. But I think it's everybody's personal choice, and I'm definitely opposed to any kind of coercion, you know, whether it be through vaccine passports or whatever the case is.
Yeah. No, I think that's also pretty much my view as well. But so let us move on to our next topic. I guess that the reason I brought up vaccines was just because government really has nothing to point to as evidence that it can run a centralized system. There's not a single centralized system in South Africa run by the state that works even a little bit well. Of course, the other big one is Eskom, which isn't exactly the same thing, but it's so a centralization of everything.
It just shows the insanity of the government. It's shown that I think I've said it before on the show that it's the reverse of King Midas. You know, everything they touch doesn't turn to gold. And it's ridiculous that they think that they can, like, there's so many government hospitals in South Africa that simply don't work. And now they want to run every single, controlled, centralized healthcare. It's completely bonkers. And it's that old saying, the sign of insanity is doing the same thing, expecting a different outcome. And that's exactly with the government.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, ordinary South Africans pay the price.
Exactly. Right. Let us move on to our next story. And this is about an expected change of leadership in the province of Northwest. So the current premier of Northwest is a guy called Mahlobo, and he took over after Supra Mpumalelo. Anyway, sorry. Mamupelo. And he was aligned with what was originally called the Premier League, which was, I think, David Mabuza, Ace Makashule, and Supra were all together as kind of these three premiers in the ANC who were the decisive group in deciding how the ANC voted.
Pro-Zuma guys, Mabuza.
The pro-Zuma guys until Mabuza secured himself the deputy presidency by stabbing the others in the back and switching sides. Supra was forced out after a lot of violent and destructive riots and protests in the province. The ANC removed him. They put in Mahlobo, and now they are removing Mahlobo because they say that he's just not doing it correctly. They're going to be putting in a guy called Bushi Mape to be the new premier of Northwest, and the party had some. I think it was Mape himself actually had some pretty harsh words for how the ANC has run Northwest. They said that there's not a single municipality in the province that they're proud of, and that it was in complete disarray, and they needed to prevent the collapse of municipalities in the province, which is, I think, a pretty sober assessment of where things are, and it's good to hear that coming from the ANC for a change, rather than this usual sort of it's all sunshine and roses thing. Now, there's already been some threats by Mahlobo supporters, who has not yet resigned as premier, although the ANC has told him to do so, that they would, quote, burn down the province if the ANC forged ahead with his removal.
Apparently, he doesn't want to leave his job because his first name is Job, and he doesn't want to change his name to Unemployed Mahlobo. Or Jobless Mahlobo.
I'm sure being a former premier of an ANC province, it's very difficult to become unemployed so long as the party remains in power after that. I'm sure they'll, as they say, redeploy him somewhere.
Well, Mamupelo was promoted upwards to Parliament. So now he's not.
Yes, exactly.
At least move sideways at the very least, I think.
Showing the wonderful amount of respect the ANC has for parliament is that it took a premier who had to resign pretty much in disgrace because his province was falling into anarchy. They put him in parliament.
Exactly.
Anyway, Becky,
Apparently,
you had
he
some
used
thoughts on
some public
Northwest.
funds to make a gospel album. There were some allegations of that sometime.
You have some thoughts on the state of Northwest. You were expressing concerns before the show.
Yeah. What's happening in the Northwest province is honestly terrible. Honestly, when looking at some of these municipalities in terms of audit outcomes, I've seen since 2014 they haven't had high levels of clean audits. And in fact, in the last audit outcome, they didn't have any clean audits at all. Some municipalities, they simply did not give the records to the Auditor General in order for them to be audited. They had outstanding audits. And it unfortunately comes in the detriment of service delivery, where service delivery declines and the average person living in Northwest is negatively impacted, as well as businesses.
We saw Clover moving out from the province recently.
We saw Clover moving out from the province and go to the eThekwini municipality in Durban. That came at the cost of 300 workers. Now 300 workers will be unemployed in Northwest. And the major concerns was firstly the road leading to the factory in Clover, water shortages, as well as power outages there, while they pay for electricity and water. And you need a constant supply of those two. Yeah.
And those are outages on top of load shedding,
exactly,
right? Because
on top
local
of
infrastructure problems. Yeah,
exactly, on top of load shedding. So not only does it have a detriment on commerce, but it also has and that negative impact on commerce leads to like a negative impact on ordinary citizens in that province as well.
Marius, you were talking recently about how it's not just Northwest that's seeing this kind of business flight.
I mean, I know in I think it's Standerton in Mpumalanga. There was, I think it was Astral Food. They have a big chicken farm there, or chicken producer, whatever the case is. And they actually also had to, I think they actually had to take the municipality to court to just provide them with things like water and electricity and whatever. And there's also, I'm not sure what town it's in, but apparently the guys make Omar rusks. They got a factory down in the Eastern Cape, and they also actually are looking to move because the road going from the factory is so bad. When the people are transporting their rusks, they get shaken around in the back of the truck and whatever, and all the rusks, when it gets to Woolies or Pick n Pay or whatever, all the rusks are broken. So people aren't happy about having to have broken rusks with their coffee, whatever the case is. So it just shows you, how just not having decent infrastructure affects businesses, and then there's all kinds of knock-on effects. I mean, Clover, I think it employed 300 people, so let's be conservative in times and say each of those people had 2 dependents. That's 900 people now that aren't going to have income, whatever the case is. The tax money that Northwest is going to lose out on, and all kinds of things. I mean, there's so many other effects from when a big or biggish factory or whatever the case is decides to look for, greener grass or whatever the case is. And look, this is just a microcosm of South Africa. Lots of these, lots of companies are just going to look at what's happening in South Africa recently, with our various policies that make it very hard to do business, and things like unrest and crime. I know crime, when businesses are asked by, I think the World Economic Forum does a survey every year, and businesses in South Africa, most of them say crime is their number one issue because of, obviously, things are getting stolen. There's also the costs that go with the crime that you've got to protect your business and whatever the case is. So, yeah, soon we won't see companies like Clover leaving Northwest to go to KwaZulu-Natal. They'll be leaving South Africa completely. And that's not just, we also saw Toyota now recently after these riots in Durban and whatever. They actually wrote quite a strongly worded letter to, I think was the mayor of Durban, just asking, what are you guys doing to protect our investment? And, the South Africans have this, we believe we've got this exceptionalism. But the world's a very big place. And if companies can't make money here, they're going to go somewhere else. And
exactly.
And a company's got to be able to make profits, come invest and give people jobs and so on. And that is South Africa's main issue, and really the only issue we have to concentrate right on now is unemployment. We have unemployment rates of close to 50%. We look at expanded unemployment. It's absolutely shocking. And it's just, somebody who's been unemployed for long, it's damaging to people psychologically, not even talking incomes and so on. And that is the biggest tragedy of post-apartheid South Africa, is our very high unemployment rate.
Yeah. That's exactly right. I think let's leave the final word on this topic to the ANC, actually. The ANC in Northwest said, there is not a single municipality we can be proud of in Northwest. Our people don't have water. There are no roads. There are no houses. Young people are unemployed. They are taking drugs. So we need to intervene at that level. We cannot sit back and have a leader at government that in fact lost it at the level of having to implement what the ANC says we must do. So yes, that's a bit muddled, but I think his analysis of the problem there is refreshingly accurate.
I hope we see one of those wonderful events where the ANC marches on the ANC to complain about ANC policies. Whatever the case that we've seen before. I think the Gauteng ANC marched on Luthuli House to complain about the ANC. Like
let's see what he does, because the usual strategy of the ANC is deflection and not actually addressing the core issues. So that statement is a fair statement. See if there's actual measures that he will take in order to improve the situation in Northwest.
Exactly. Anyway, let us move on to overseas. And this is, of course, a story about the UK, where an academic who was formerly employed with Leeds Beckett University is suing the university after she was dropped from her advisory role because in some tweets she called a mixed-race man a, quote, house Negro, alleging the decision was discriminatory because of her belief in critical race theory and black radicalism. The university ended their contract with her. Her name is Aisha Kanom, after accusing her of, quote, racist language in relation to tweets using the terms house Negro and coconut, the former in question. So she's now taking them to court, saying that it was unfair that they're targeting her because of her belief in black radicalism, and that, in fact, these terms are completely acceptable to be used because they are, quote, according to her letter, central concepts in black intellectual thought. And her letter also says that it's okay for us to use words like this because Malcolm X popularized these terms to describe black people who defended the status quo, were eager to fit in and please white people. Bheki.
Yikes, as they say.
Yeah,
Yikes.
Bheki. Your thoughts? So there's kind of two issues here, right? There's what should people be fired for, and then there's, what do you think of the use of those terms?
Yeah, let's start with the term house Negro. It honestly buggers me that a lot of people use that term to describe someone that they basically disagree with. And in this particular instance, it's a black person. Like I've seen it. This is predominantly on social media. I don't see it on a day-to-day actual life, where like if someone is like center right or whatever term political alignment is now being identified nowadays, but predominantly are them coming from right side, they're labeled as house Negroes, Uncle Toms, and so forth. Prime example that comes to mind is Big Daddy Liberty Sihle. And they use this as a way of sort of downgrading him and not actually looking at the substance of arguments that they bring up. Because the core issues that Sihle and Big Daddy and some of these individuals bring up that are labeled Uncle Toms and House Negroes today are core issues that face average people, predominantly disproportionately black people. For example, if you said that there should be more cops on the streets, competent cops, of course, and you're a black person, you'd be labeled a house Negro or an Uncle Tom because you're supporting cops, and cops are oppressing black people and shooting black people. Why would you support that? Well, you support that because when they withdraw cops, when they defund the police, you see an increase in crime, such as what we saw in Atlanta, Chicago, and so forth. And I honestly have nothing else to say on this. It's just really disgraceful, and it's also an excuse for some of these individuals to be racist. Actually, the use of term of Uncle Tom. I've seen certain white people justify calling a person a house nigger because they align themselves with it being Republican or whatever the case is. So it's truly unfortunate, and companies are free to choose whether they would like to associate themselves with such individuals.
No, exactly. It's quite shocking to me how critical race theory has managed to essentially mainstream racial slurs against people, but just so long as they're people on the right side of an issue or the wrong side of an issue. Marius, your thoughts? So, firstly,
I think
was it right for the university to kick her out? And also, do you have anything to add to what Bheki just said?
Yes, I think it was, as Bheki says, private companies can associate with whoever they like. But I think Bheki also hit the nail on the head there. It's a fundamental. It allows people to be racist. Like, nobody's going to say to me that I'm a traitor to my race because of the things I believe in. Because in things like property rights and the free market and individualism and so on. But they'll say to somebody like Bheki or Sikhle, they'll call them horrible names and say that they're traitors to black people, because obviously all black people have to be of one mind. And if you don't agree with, left-wing African socialism, whatever the case is, then there's something wrong with you. But as a white person, there's nothing. Nobody's going to say there's something wrong with me or that I'm brainwashed because I'm I subscribe to liberal ideas, like I say, free markets, individualism, and all that kind of thing. But I mean, we at the institute also get criticized for criticizing critical race theory, because we say we get told it's it's a boogeyman, and it's not such a big deal, blah blah blah. But I mean, this woman says her belief in critical race theory is why she can be a horrible racist to people she disagrees with, and it's ridiculous. I mean, that's like saying somebody who says they used to be a member of they're a member of the RVBA or whatever the case is, so they should be allowed to use the K word. And it's if you discriminate against them for using the K word, then it's discriminate against them on the grounds of belief. It's completely.
Right. It's as mad as someone who is a communist saying, because I'm a communist, it means I'm allowed to enslave my workers.
Exactly. But I mean, but belief is a protected issue in in the UK. For example, you can't fire somebody for being a Muslim, or I mean, there's a famous case of Maya Forstater, who she contract wasn't renewed because she said she doesn't think that trans women are literally women. Said only a person who's born as a woman can be a woman, and trans women can't literally be women. And she was fired for that. It was fired. She went to the labor court and it was found in her favor, and that's right. But she would have got fired if she used some slur against a trans woman, called them, I don't know, tranny or ladyboy or something awful. So your belief is obviously protected, but that doesn't give you the right to use slurs against other people, which this woman did. This Aisha Kanom lady.
And critical race theory, like it's actually, I just want to say something about critical race theory. In some of these schools, they say that they say that, oh no, because like these black students are so lowly educated, therefore we need to give them a subpar mathematics compared to other students. Like it's racist to do that. It's the low expectation. It's bigotry. It's a low expectation of someone according to their skin color and so forth. Jeez, it just honestly sometimes really frustrates me sometimes when I see this stuff.
Yeah, that's putting it very mildly, Bheki.
Yeah.
But you're a chill dude, so seeing you get frustrated, it takes something truly crazy to make you upset like that.
Yeah, it takes a lot, because it's usually in academia. I mean, I saw this as well in university. Let me tell you a funny thing. This is anecdotal evidence. There was a module that I did called Sustainability and Greed. Even by that subject, it's just, oh my goodness. It's CRT 1000 there. You have to say like, black people are oppressed. If you didn't, they'll fail you. Even like the students, when you engage them with certain principles, you get labeled and so forth. So this touches home. But I'll chill now.
All right. I think we're going to call it to a close. We've gone a little bit late the last couple of days. So anyway, thank you very much for listening to the show. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope you found it interesting. And please, if you want to hear more from us, if you want to support us, go to the irr.org.za and click the Join Us button to sign up to become a friend of the Institute of Race Relations, which of course powers the Daily Friend and the Daily Friend Show. Please also subscribe to us, like this video, spread it around with all family, friends, and enemies, whatever. And yeah, you can also SMS your name to 32823. Also, like I say, check out the dailyfriend.co.za for news and analysis. We don't have any paywalls. It's all free. read what we think about things. We think that we have some interesting stuff to say. And yeah, thank you very much for listening. And we will see you tomorrow on the Dirty Friends Show. Cheers, everyone.